Welcome to the Good Health Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Good, a certified functional medicine practitioner, registered nutritionist, and author. In this podcast, we delve into the world of energy and immune health and wellness with positivity, from optimal health and energy to stress and burnout, right through to immune conditions such as thyroid and autoimmune disease. We deep dive into functional medicine, nutritional medicine, and lifestyle medicine, as well as the personal stories of our amazing guests, from Olympians to famous faces and guest experts from all different parts of the health and wellness world. It's time to stop letting your health hold you back and become the optimal version of you. Don't forget to come and join the conversation on Instagram at good_health, that's GOODE, or visit the website nicolegoodhealth.com to find out more. Welcome to today's episode of the Good Health Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Good, functional medicine practitioner and registered nutritional therapist. In today's episode, we are going to be doing something that has been requested a lot. And we're going to be talking about the functional testing that we use in clinic. Testing is something that you are all really interested in, but maybe don't know quite so much about, or you don't understand sort of what the differences are between the types of testing that we do and the types of testing that you might get for the same sort of thing within conventional medicine. So in these episodes around testing, we're going to break it down and we're going to look at a few different tests each time, because there is a lot. We do a lot of different types of functional testing. There's a lot to get through. I want to give you a decent overview of who should be taking the test, who should be considering them, what the test looks at, and what markers we look at, and what the benefits might be to you. So we're going to break it down. Today, we're going to be looking at stool testing. We're going to be looking at the intestinal barrier, the intestinal wall. We're going to be looking at mycotoxins, and we're going to be looking at genetic testing. But we are going to cover lots of testing in these episodes, from viral screens, autoimmunity, stress, adrenals, lots of different things. And we will cover different tests in each episode. We're going to get started today. So we're going to jump straight into stool testing initially. I hope you enjoy the episode, and I hope you enjoy the series of episodes that covers the different types of functional testing that we do in clinic. Testing is always optional as well. I think that's something else just to say before we kind of really get started and dig into looking at the testing. Any program you work with me on, testing is always optional, and it's not something you have to do. You can work with functional medicine, you can work with nutritional therapy, and you can work on your health without having testing done if that's the way you want to do it. That's absolutely fine. But functional testing does give you a lot of insights. It gives you a lot of benefits. We can get to answers faster. And it has a lot of good things about it. And a lot of you, I would say more and more of you actually in clinic are wanting to use it. And I think that's why it's important that we sort of discuss it and have a chat about it on this podcast. So why functional testing? At Good Health, we take a root cause approach to healthcare, because true wellness and true health is not just about masking your symptoms. It's about understanding the symptoms, addressing what is driving them, and really getting to the bottom of what is going on underneath. Many of the chronic health issues, chronic health conditions, whether it's symptoms or diagnoses, diseases, from fatigue to digestive problems to hormonal imbalances, autoimmune conditions, lots of these things stem from underlying dysfunctions in the body that conventional testing often misses. And this is where functional testing plays a really crucial role. So by using some of this advanced laboratory analysis, we are going beyond that sort of standard blood work, although blood work, I should say, is one of the things that we do, of course, do. But we're going beyond that to assess key markers, uncover hidden imbalances, and identify those real triggers behind your symptoms. So whether it's nutrient deficiencies, gut dysbiosis, toxin exposures, hormone fluctuations, all of these things we can look into, and they really allow us to create a truly personalized plan. So functional testing for a lot of people can actually be that missing piece of the puzzle, especially in those where they've struggled to find answers, or they feel like they're doing everything, but they're not getting the benefits. And it can really help you to move from a place of frustration with your health to having real measurable results. The functional testing is really beneficial wherever you are on that sort of spectrum. So whether you are just having a few niggling symptoms, you've kind of reached that full burnout sort of stage, you've got something like a chronic fatigue, or you've got a full-blown autoimmune disease. Wherever you are on that spectrum of people that we work with, functional testing has its place and has its role. And it's because of this that we've actually just put a section on the website on functional testing. So we'll link that page below this episode so you guys can go and have a look. And you can read a little bit more about the testing. You can actually order testing on there as well now. We have a testing brochure as well that you can download on there so you can have a look. It's not all the testing that we do. Again, that would make it a very, very long brochure and very, very long website page. But we have put on the most common ones, but we can do a lot of things. There's a lot more that we can also do. So if there's anything on there that you think you want to get, you want doing and it's not on there, then absolutely reach out, drop us an email, and we'll link that below the episode as well. But let's take a look at some of these most common ones. Okay, so we're going to start with the comprehensive stool test because this is one that we mention a lot, we talk about it a lot, and a lot of people know about it and are very keen to get this done. So your gut is core to so many different aspects and pillars of your overall health. And it influences everything from your immune function, your hormone balance, your energy production. And the comprehensive 3-day stool test that we do is cutting edge functional medicine testing. The one that we use, we send over to America. So samples go back to America. It's not sort of UK testing. It's entirely different to that sort of testing that you would get done for the gut with conventional medicine. So with conventional medicine, you may get maybe 4 or 5 markers done. You might get an inflammatory marker. Occasionally you might get an H. pylori. They will test a few things to see what's going on in the gut. Our comprehensive 3-day stool test gives us a roughly 20-page report on your gut. So that is 20 pages of information as to things that could be going well for you or going wrong and acting as triggers. And it really is like nothing else. It provides a really in-depth analysis into your gut microbiome, your digestion, the biochemistry of your gut, the inflammation, potential infections. So it covers so much. And in clinic, we really commonly see gut imbalances are one of those drivers behind burnout, chronic fatigue, thyroid dysfunction, autoimmune conditions, stress-related health issues, so much where the gut is a factor. From an immune perspective, more than 70% of our immune system is in the gut. From a thyroid perspective, we convert most of our thyroid hormone from T4 to T3 in the gut. Autoimmune conditions, we know that things like infections and intestinal permeability or leaky gut, as you may know it, act as a trigger for those sort of autoimmune conditions. So there's so many different ways that the gut can be causing flare-ups or triggering illness within you or symptoms. So the test really helps us to look for some of these key factors. And by addressing the root causes that come up on this test, we really can get a very targeted plan in place for you to help restore your gut back to full health. And there's lots that we can do. So when the things come up on the test out of balance, there is a lot that we can do to help bring that gut back to balance. That's really important. I'm not going to talk through every single marker. Obviously, like I said, it's a roughly 20-page report. We do that with you if we do a test review consultation, but I'm just going to give you kind of a general overview. So we look at the gut microbiome balance. So what we're looking at with there is we're identifying the beneficial bacteria. We're identifying any pathogenic bacteria. So any of the bacteria in the gut, if it's making you feel ill. We also look at something called commensal bacteria. So it's not really the good stuff. It's not the bad stuff. It's kind of just taking up space. So we're assessing for any of that dysbiosis, which just means an imbalance in the bacteria in the microbiome. We're also looking at microbial diversity. So how diverse is your microbiome? Then we've got pathogens and infections. So we're looking at parasites, we're looking at viruses, we're looking at opportunistic bacteria, all of these things that may contribute to symptoms. We're also looking at yeast and fungal overgrowth, so we can assess that candida level. Everybody has candida running through the body. Everybody has yeast in the system. This is whether or not we've got an imbalance, whether there's an overgrowth, and we can see the level of overgrowth within your gut with these things. So on the testing, they take what has grown in your system with these sort of overgrowth, with some of these overgrowths that you've got. They will grow them in like a petri dish, and they will try different nutraceuticals against them. In some cases, different antibiotics. It depends what we're talking about. And they will test them against the strain that is actually in your body. And we can see which ones are effective at getting rid of it from your system, at helping to eliminate it from your system. So in doing that with the testing, we know that we can give really, really targeted therapies as well, which is really, really hugely beneficial. And some of these fungal overgrowths that you can get, these can really impact things like digestion and immune function. They act as big triggers for autoimmune disease. So it's really important to find those if they're in there. Same with all those other pathogens and infections as well, the parasites, the viruses, the bacteria. So then we move on and we look at things like digestive function. So we are measuring levels of digestive enzymes. We're looking at fat absorption, how you're breaking down protein, and evaluating how well your food is actually being processed. Because there's no point eating all the good food if you're not actually taking up all the nutrients from it, if you're not getting the benefit. So we want to make sure that that's all working properly. And actually, when you eat all the good stuff, you're actually getting the goodness into your body. That inflammation and immune response that we're looking at markers like calprotectin. We're looking at your secretory IgA. So that is the first part of the immune system that comes out to fight infection if things get into the gut. So we're seeing how fast and how well is your immune system reacting when it comes into contact with something, because we all come into contact with things. We're eating food, things get into the system. What is your gut doing and how is it coping with that? What's the immune activity like? We can also look at markers, things like zonulin. These help to indicate intestinal permeability, so that's sort of leaky gut. There is no one leaky gut intestinal permeability test, but we can look at things like zonulin. Zonulin is an add-on, but we can do that if we think that that is an issue. And we can also look at some of the other markers that are within the test to gauge a picture of what that intestinal permeability looks like. What is the condition of the intestine wall? What's the strength of it? And do we think that there's anything there that could be triggering chronic illnesses or autoimmune? We also look at short-chain fatty acids. This is to do with fibers. It's how you're metabolizing fibers. They're a byproduct of fiber metabolism. And they play a really key role in metabolism, in gut health, in immune function. So lots of different things. So again, we're looking at the health of the gut, as well as getting that information on which therapies we can use against anything that's in your gut. They will also let us know if there is something in there that is resistant. If there is a kind of normal therapy, a normal nutraceutical or antibiotic that would be used for something that's in your gut, it might be that the type that is in your gut is actually resistant to that. And they will find that out and tell us that as well. So there's an awful lot of information that can be gleaned from this comprehensive stool test. It's really easy to do. You do it at home, so that's the benefit of it. And you just send the test back and then the results come through to us. So really nice and easy to do. People who should consider this test, it's almost everybody that we work with. It's going to be beneficial in some way. Gut health just plays a part in everything. But if we sort of go through some of the things, obviously if there's digestive issues, so if we've got bloating, constipation, diarrhea, reflux, IBS-like symptoms, anything that's not resolved with simple sort of dietary changes, it's going to be beneficial. If you've got food sensitivities or you've got inflammation, so if you're reacting to foods or you've got skin issues or you've got joint pain, any of that sort of unexplained inflammation in the body, then gut testing is also going to be helpful for that. With things like burnout and chronic fatigue, gut dysfunction could be a sort of an underlying cause of it. It could be a contributing factor. Because we can see poor nutrient absorption, we can see inflammation, and that results in these low energy levels. In thyroid dysfunction, we quite commonly see imbalances in gut bacteria. We quite commonly see infections, particularly if there's autoimmune going on. We get the impact from that immune function. We also see that gut disruption can impair that thyroid hormone conversion as well. Autoimmune conditions, gut is very, very involved. So we're commonly looking for intestinal permeability, dysbiosis, any of those things that act as common triggers for autoimmune. Brain fog as well. So if we're seeing brain fog or mood changes, we know about that gut-brain connection. That plays a really crucial role. So we can see things like focus going off, memory going off, mood regulation changing, any of those sorts of symptoms. Again, that gut health is going to be really important. And frequent infections as well. So with working with people with immune disturbances, quite commonly see low immunity. So we'll see people who are getting chronic colds, recurring infections, or just having that sort of overreactive immune response. So really, this is sort of testing that is beneficial for so many people. So that's the comprehensive stool test. Then we also have the advanced intestinal barrier screen. So we're going to do this one next because this, again, is kind of linking to that gut health. When we're looking at the advanced intestinal barrier test, we're looking at your gut lining. And we know that this gut lining, this gut wall, plays a really crucial role in overall health. It acts as the protective barrier that is regulating your nutrient absorption. It's preventing against harmful substances from getting into the bloodstream. When it is compromised, we can trigger that sort of widespread inflammation, immune dysfunction, and then develop chronic health conditions, autoimmune diseases. And there's lots of things that can impair the barrier. From diet to lifestyle, stress, sleep, so many different things can have an impact on the intestine wall, right through to sort of, any of those infections and bacteria, viral things that we're talking about in the stool test. So the advanced intestinal barrier assessment, the test, it's a comprehensive test that is looking more specifically at the gut permeability and that mucosal wall. It looks at key markers that are associated with that intestinal lining's damage. It looks at immune activation. It's looking at gut dysfunction, but we're looking at slightly different markers. So we can see things like DAO, which is diamine oxidase, which is an enzyme that's responsible for histamine degradation. We are looking at the DAO and histamine ratio. We're looking at histamine levels. We're looking at lipopolysaccharides, so LPS. So this is IgA, IgG, IgM, so that we're detecting immune responses with this. And that can be indicative of that leaky gut intestinal permeability and systemic inflammation. We're looking at zonulin as well. So that's a key regulator of the tight junctions in the gut. So we've talked about intestinal permeability a lot on this podcast, but these are the junctions that open and close within the gut wall to let things through into the bloodstream. So we're looking at those and how they're working. The DAO, like I said, is the enzyme responsible for that sort of histamine degradation. We're looking at histamine as well. So we're looking at those elevated levels. Are there elevated levels which can contribute to inflammation, digestive issues, immune dysregulation? So all of these sorts of things. This test is specifically looking at that sort of intestinal permeability. If that is something that we think is there, sometimes we might do the stool test first. This might be something that we add on after. Sometimes we're specifically looking at intestinal permeability. So we would run this test first on its own. There's different ways of using this test. Who should use it? Who should consider this test? Again, digestive issues. This is definitely something that we're going to want to be looking at. So bloating, constipation, diarrhea, abdominal pain, any of those sorts of symptoms. If we see histamine intolerance symptoms as well, so headaches, sinus congestion, food sensitivity, itching skin, any of these sort of allergy type symptoms. If we've got autoimmune conditions going on, because we know of the connection between autoimmune and intestinal permeability. If there's chronic inflammation, so again, if there's joint pain, any of that inflammatory response going on, any unexplained fatigue as well, this can be an underlying cause for that. If you're getting frequent infections as well and allergies, so if you get seasonal allergies like hay fever, skin conditions like eczema, or you just get more frequent infections, sort of getting ill more commonly. Obviously food sensitivities as well, and cognitive decline as well, actually. So memory issues, difficulty concentrating. If we're considering sort of neuroinflammation, this can be another one that we look at. This is a blood draw, so it's different to the stool test. We do a blood draw with this one. That's another sort of side of the gut testing that we can do. So let's move on to another of the very common sort of tests that we do in clinic, actually becoming more and more common. More and more people are recognizing the importance of this, and that is mycotoxin testing. So it's the mold testing. What we're looking at here is exposure to mold and mycotoxins. And they can have a really, really significant impact on energy, immune function, and lots of symptoms, overall health. But it's it used to be, very commonly overlooked as a root cause of chronic symptoms and chronic disease, including autoimmune diseases, or even just symptoms like fatigue, where they've got burnout and things like that. It's one of those tests that I'm doing a lot in clinic. A lot of people are becoming more aware of it. A lot of people are actually reaching out and approaching me about mold toxicities rather than coming to me and we're finding it as a root cause. It's a urine test. So it's a very highly sensitive urine test that detects the metabolites that are produced by the mold. So it's helping to look for these root causes, hidden environmental exposures. If we have mycotoxin related illness, there's lots of different mycotoxins. So it tests for lots of different ones. So the symptoms can be quite varied, but commonly in clinic, we're seeing it as a root cause of burnout, of chronic fatigue, brain fog, thyroid dysfunction, autoimmune conditions. So lots of different things, lots of different symptoms. Mycotoxins can disrupt the immune system. So it then triggers that inflammation. We get impaired detoxification pathways, and it can lead to quite persistent and unexplained symptoms that we do quite often see it as well in people where they've tried lots of things, tried maybe lots of conventional treatments, tried lots of supplementation, tried changing their diet a lot, and they're just not getting to the root cause of what's going on. This can be one of those things that has got missed, particularly on the energy front as well. Energy, cognitive function, immune resilience, that sort of thing. So there's lots of different markers, like I said, that we look at because there's lots of different molds that we see. Some of the sort of more common ones that come up, mycotoxin A, so very common in sort of water damaged buildings. You don't need to necessarily be able to see the mold in your house or in your workplace. That's one thing that's really sort of important to mention. A lot of people sort of say, oh, well, I can't see mold in my house. I don't have any. Very common that you can't. Sometimes you can, but very common that you can't. You can still be in a moldy environment if there's been a water leak somewhere. Mycotoxin A is something that, we've talked about on the podcast before, so I'm not going to go into huge detail on it, but you can, we'll link the episode below. There is other episodes on mycotoxin A, but it is a persistent mold. So it's one of those that gets into the body and isn't going to get out easily. So we do have to do something about it.
regardless of how long it's been in there. If we see octotoxin A coming up, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are currently exposed to octotoxin A, to that sort of mold. It could come from a building that you've been in previously. We also look at some other molds. We look at things like gliotoxins. We look at mycophenolic acid, which that one suppresses the immune system. And it also gives us an indication that there's a more current exposure going on. So that can be a really useful one as well. The gliotoxins, they suppress the immune function. Commonly see that when we've got yeast infections as well. Octotoxin A, I didn't mention sort of the symptoms with that one, really because it's very widespread. Because it's a persister, it actually binds to a protein in your blood, travels all around the body. So everything, it can really impact so many different things, from fertility, kidney function, immune health, neurological imbalance, energy levels. It can impact sort of everything. Aflatoxins as well, we look at those. They're linked to liver stress. So that's sort of immune suppression, detoxification issues, oxidative damage. Lots of different molds. We're not going to go into all the different types in this, but that's what we're looking at. Who should consider a mycotoxin test? As I've said, the symptoms are pretty widespread. You definitely really want to consider this if you've got sort of that persistent fatigue, low energy. We're looking at mitochondrial dysfunction with that. And mitochondrial dysfunction can be caused by mycotoxins. Cognitive issues as well, brain fog, memory problems, poor concentration, mental sluggishness. Commonly, we need to look at mycotoxins with that as well. Unexplained autoimmune symptoms. So mycotoxins can trigger that immune dysregulation, so they can act as a trigger for autoimmunity. Thyroid dysfunction as well. Mold can impair thyroid hormone conversion, so it can be contributing to sort of hypothyroidism. If you get frequent infections as well, that's quite a common symptom. Low immunity, common cold, lots of common colds, sinus infections, difficulty recovering from those sorts of infections when you get them. Sinus congestion as well, any respiratory issues. Hormonal imbalances as well. So like I did mention sort of fertility issues, but worsening PMS symptoms as well, irregular cycles, those sorts of things. We can also consider mycotoxin testing. Skin rashes as well, sensitivity, so eczema, hives, any sort of skin rashes. Obviously, if there's a history of mold exposure, so if you have lived or worked at any point in a damp or water damaged building, then obviously that's a really, really sensible reason to take the test. Chemical sensitivities as well. So if you find you get increased reactions to fragrances, so let's say you walked into a perfume shop and you feel like you get a bit of a headache, that sort of chemical sensitivity. And detoxification issues. So if you have a difficulty tolerating alcohol, you don't take medications very well, you don't cope with supplements very well, anything where we could be looking at that sort of impaired liver detoxification. So lots of different reasons for that one. And then the last one that I'm going to touch on today, so we're doing a little bit of a broad spectrum on today's episode. We sort of looked at the two around gut testing. We've looked at mycotoxin testing. And the last one I want to look at today is genetic testing. Genetic testing, I love. I think it's a brilliant thing to do. It's one that we do in our 12-month program. So if you work with me on the full program, where we're looking at the 8 different pillars of health and my 4 lifestyle S's, the strength, sleep, stress, and social, plus all the pillars of health, and we work together on the 12 months, then we do the genetic testing. But we can do genetic testing with anybody. So we can do it whatever program you're on. If you want to add it on, that's fine. Your genes play a really, really crucial role in how your body is going to process things. So how your body is going to process nutrients, how you're going to manage inflammation, how you're going to detoxify, how you respond to stress. All of these things are unique to you. And with the DNA testing, we can really get that comprehensive look at the key genetic variants that impact metabolism, hormone balance, brain function, all these different things. The one that I use, we're looking at specifically at health. So we're looking at health markers with this. But with the genetic testing, it really allows us to highly personalize our plans. So the nutrition, the lifestyle, the supplementation plans to you. And this can really be supportive when we're looking at your current health, but also at preventative health. So if we're looking at that longevity picture, it's really useful for that energy, stress resilience, immune health, lots of different things. We can just tailor and personalize everything to you. The test that we use has over 170 markers, so I'm not going to go into each one. We'll have a look at some of the sort of the key areas that we look at. So we look at your vitamin and mineral requirements. So this is really personalized insights into your nutrient absorption, your nutrient metabolism, things like your B vitamins, your vitamin D, magnesium, lots of these things. How do you take them up? How do you use them? How much of them do you need for you? So rather than just going off general guidelines, we're looking at specifically for you. We also look at sort of heavy metal and pesticide sensitivity. So do you have any genetic predispositions that can affect detoxification or toxin clearance? We're looking at that as well. Your macronutrient metabolism as well, how your body processes carbohydrates, fats, proteins, all those things to make sure that we're optimizing that energy balance. We look at toxin sensitivity. So what's your response to environmental toxins, things like pollutants, chemicals, anything that might impact health. Genetic factors that can influence gut health as well, and microbial balance. So that sort of sensitivity to bacterial overgrowth, yeast, parasites, all of these sorts of things. We look at DNA repair and longevity as well. I love this part of it. I think it's hugely fascinating. So we look at the genetic pathways that are involved in cellular repair, oxidative stress, aging, longevity, hugely interesting and really good for that preventative health. So looking at that longevity picture and keeping you as healthy as we can for as long as possible. Hormones and fertility as well. So impact of genetic variants on estrogen metabolism, testosterone balance, reproductive health, sleep optimization as well, meal timing. So how your genetics influence your circadian rhythms, meal schedules, metabolism. We look at stress management and resilience. So that sort of cortisol regulation, your response to stress. We look at methylation and detoxification. So the key pathways there for detoxification, how that might be impacted and how that might impact inflammation. We look at cardiovascular health, so genetic risk for heart health, for blood pressure, for cholesterol. Mental health as well, and cognitive function. So your genetic influence on anxiety, on addiction, on OCD tendencies, on brain repair, mood regulation. So lots of these sorts of things. And then also as well, that sort of athletic performance and recovery. And this doesn't necessarily just need to be for athletes, but it can really help us with how you as a person should be exercising, what you should be eating around exercise, what your endurance is like, injury risk is like, muscle composition. So lots of good things there in terms of helping with that strength pillar as well. Again, who should consider this test? I mean, this is going to benefit anyone. You know, this really is a deeply personalized approach to health and nutrition. So it's really going to be beneficial for anybody. But like I said, you know, we're looking at, for burnout, chronic fatigue, we're looking at mitochondrial function, we're looking at energy production, stress resilience. So really useful for that. From a thyroid point of view, we're looking at metabolism, inflammation, detoxification. So all of it really useful with autoimmune conditions, because we're looking again, gut health, inflammation, immune regulation, nutrients. So we're looking at so many different things. Detoxification challenges as well, obviously really useful for that. Gut and microbiome. So if you've got any gut issues, it can be helpful for that. If you have sleep issues or stress in your life, again, that's another reason why you might want to look at this. Cognitive function. And that longevity picture as well, just thinking about that sort of preventative medicine. But really anybody, this is really, really tailored, personalized health and care. I just think it's hugely fascinating. It gives wonderful insights and helps us really build tailored plans. So it's really one to consider if that is something that you're interested in. So we're going to leave it there for today. That's the 4 tests that we've talked about today. So we've got the stool test, intestinal barrier test, the genetic testing, mycotoxin testing. We're going to come back. We're going to do some more of these episodes and look at some of the other testing that we do. We're going to be covering things like viral panels, Epstein-Barr panels, post-COVID panels, Lyme panels. We're going to look at more autoimmune testing. We're going to look at chronic fatigue testing. We're going to look at adrenals, mitochondria, neurotransmitters, hormones, blood panels, nutritional testing. So we've got lots more to cover. But this is just the first episode where we're touching on some of that testing and how it might be useful and beneficial for you in your health journey. I will put the links below this episode today for our testing brochure, for the testing page on the website, for our order form if you want to order any testing, and how to contact us. If you want to contact us to talk about any testing, if you want to ask any questions, we're more than happy to advise on which testing would be right for you. So that's it for today. Do listen in again as we jump into the next lot of testing. And I will be back very soon with another episode of the Good Health Podcast.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Good Health Podcast. Do share the episode with anyone you think it may benefit and help us to spread the word on all things health and wellness by rating, liking, or subscribing to the podcast. If you want more, you can listen to more episodes on your favorite podcast app or sign up to my newsletter for my favorite tips, tricks, health advice, brands, recipes, and more at nicolegoodhealth.com/newsletter. Have a lovely week. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next episode of the Good Health Podcast.